Discover 2 hours of transformative sleep stories, amazing Greek myths that inspire and surprise. Maya had always dreamed of weaving tales like the ones she had learned as a child, stories rich with adventure and magic that captivated the imagination. Yet, as she shuffled through the gray hallways of Harrison High School, her spirit felt drained, like a faded photo. Standardized tests loomed over her like a shadow, each score a nail in the coffin of creativity. Her life was swallowed by obligation, an elderly mother requiring constant care, 2 children with dreams she couldn't afford to nurture, and a paycheck that barely covered groceries. In the crumbling attic of her late grandmother's house, a dusty, leather-bound book caught her eye. Could it really be the same collection of myths her grandmother had wrapped around her senses like a warm blanket? She opened it slowly, the musty pages releasing a familiar scent. There it was, Zeus, Athena, and Pandora characters entwined in battles of wit and power. Maya felt a spark, so vibrant it was almost physical. Could these timeless tales inspire her students? Or was this just another piece of her broken dreams? But as she began to imagine transforming these myths into bedtime stories for her class, her heart sank. The school administration had made it painfully clear, straying from the approved curriculum could threaten her job. The fear of losing her income paralyzed her. She could almost hear the cold whispers of concerned colleagues, could almost see the bureaucratic red tape entangling her aspirations. What if she failed? The weight of responsibility felt crushing her mother's needs and her children's futures pressed heavily against her chest. As the weeks rolled by, the stories haunted her thoughts. You shouldn't want more. This is your life, she told herself, alternating between yearning for freedom and the crushing weight of reality. Then she stumbled upon a heartbreaking revelation. Her grandmother had been a storyteller in her own right, captivating audiences with her vivid imagination, only to abandon it all for the sake of family obligations. The parallels were undeniable and suffocating. Was she destined to follow the same path, shackled by fear and conformity? Before she could dwell too long on the anguish wrestling within her, an unexpected announcement buzzed like electricity through the faculty lounge. An esteemed author was set to visit the town. The opportunity pulsed with possibility. Could she showcase her creative side at last? Could this be her chance to step into the light? But then, flashes of her mother's frail form and her children's eager faces flickered through her mind, reminding her of all that was at stake. How could she pursue this dream when it threatened the precarious stability of her family? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With each sleepless night, her dreams tangled deeper into the web of anxiety and conflict. Should she harness the stories that once brought her joy or stifle that flicker of hope to keep her fragile family secure? The tension lay thick in the air, her heart pounding with the weight of indecision. What if she could intertwine both worlds? What if she could risk it all to honor her own creativity while caring for her loved ones? The question spun in her mind like a storm, and the answer, tantalizingly elusive, hung just out of reach. Maya awoke the next morning with turbulent thoughts racing through her mind. The decision loomed like a monstrous shadow, casting doubt over her everyday routines. The weight of her responsibilities pinched at her conscience, but the dream of igniting a spark in her students refused to flicker out. It was Sunday, her only day off, and a small window of time to explore what lay within her. After preparing breakfast for her children and checking on her mother, she retreated to the solitude of her bedroom. The leather-bound book lay open on the desk, a gateway to the adventure that called to her. With no clear plan but a desperate resolve, she began scribbling notes alongside ideas that flowed from her fingertips like ink from the pen. The words felt rebellious as they danced across the page, glistening romances and treacherous quests peppered with moral lessons. Heroes with flaws and divine interventions leaped into life through her sketches and outlines. As she paused, an exhilarating rush coursed through her. The vividness of the stories began to weave a fabric of courage around her. Yet, her joy was short-lived. The relentless dread of the school administration loomed over her thoughts like a persistent fog. What if she drew cries of indignation from peers who remained entrenched in their rigid structures? The voices of doubt infiltrated her moment of inspiration, wrapping around her resolve and squeezing tightly. Would her passion for storytelling risk igniting familial turmoil, a precarious balance already strained against the realities of survival? Silencing the inner critic, she decided to write a short story inspired by the myths, a test of sorts. During an impromptu visit to her classroom earlier that week, she had soaked in her students' eyes full of wonder, and perhaps that magic could be channeled through her words. A small win. With every paragraph written, every twist in the tale, she transcended the mundane rhythm of her life, inching toward a world of possibility where her voice could resonate like a chorus. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the urgency to act flared once more. What if she shared her work among her colleagues, an informal gathering among teachers, a chance to connect without the scripted constraints? It could be an enlightening experience, a safe space to expose her creative vulnerabilities. Yet fear seeped through her resolve. What if she was ridiculed? Prompted to stay in line when all she wanted was to break free? Doubt resurfaced as she stared out her window into the twilight. The flickering streetlight resembled the yearning within her, dim, yet persistent. Perhaps that was the heart of it, right? Following the glimmers of hope despite the risks involved. The stakes were high. Her family depended on her for sustenance, yes, but also for inspiration. Maya resolved that either path she might choose bore shadows, but what if embracing her narrative meant something beyond her own fulfillment? Perhaps she could remind her students of the power nestled within their creativity, the need to question, to dream. As thoughts collided, she scribbled furiously, grounding her epiphany into words. The stories we tell have the power to shape our reality. Just as her pen lifted from the page, her phone vibrated with a notification. The author she had yearned to meet was hosting a workshop aimed at budding writers, encouraging them to transform their life stories into art. The connection felt electric, as though the universe nudged her toward a reckoning. Could this be the stepping stone, the moment where she stood at the precipice of choice? As she mulled over the decision in her mind, Maya felt fear bubble beneath the surface, yet determination rose alongside it. The moment was precarious, yet exhilaration enveloped her thoughts as she reached for her phone to register. What would come of stepping into the unknown? Would she grasp the chance to reshape her path or slip further into fear? The workshop would be more than just a learning opportunity, it could shatter the chains preventing her story from being told. The question still lingered, could she commit herself fully to this course while ensuring her family's needs remained met? The allure of embracing her potential felt intoxicating, a tightrope act under the watchful eyes of stability. As she hit the submit button, she felt a tremor, a shift within herself poised for transformation. But would this very decision put everything at risk? Finding the courage to stand in front of others to tell her story, to share her dreams was just the beginning. The time had come to confront not just the struggles of her home, but the unyielding voice of doubt echoing in her mind. The following morning loomed heavy with the aftermath of her decision. Maya awoke, the light filtering in through the curtains as if attempting to illuminate the muddled thoughts swirling in her mind. The workshop was mere days away, and anticipation laced with anxiety gnawed at her resolve. What had she just done? As she moved about the house, her motions were mechanical. She cooked breakfast, kissed her children goodbye, and sent them off to school, each action unconsciously grounding her in a reality that felt increasingly surreal. The weight of her choice pressed against her chest, a stern reminder of the commitment to herself she had finally made. Yet, doubt threatened to infiltrate. Would she crumble in front of seasoned writers or, worse, share something deeply personal only to receive indifference? At school, her mind oscillated between the mundane tasks of teaching and the thunderous call of her creative ambitions. The moment she stepped into her classroom, a surge of warmth enveloped her. The sight of her students, buzzing with laughter, reminded her of the very reason she was delving into storytelling, to inspire. Each smiling face reignited the flicker of hope within her, but the mission seemed daunting. Could she truly bridge her ambitions with the responsibilities waiting for her at home? When lunchtime arrived, Maya found herself sitting alone in the teacher's lounge, a cup of coffee steaming by her side. Her colleagues' conversations swirled around her, yet she felt a world apart, caught between the boldness of her choice and the fear of judgment. As they discussed the latest curriculum changes, she could feel the gravitational pull of their collective mindset stifling her creativity further. How could she break the mold? The thought pricked and prodded her, an incessant reminder that she was at a crossroads. Determined, Maya pulled out her notebook now stained with ink and feverish scribbles and began to draft a plan. Could she craft a story that not only communicated her vision to her colleagues but also encapsulated her fears? Maybe a narrative wherein the protagonist bridged skepticism and creativity could spark a dialogue. The idea blossomed as she drew from her own reality. The struggles of balancing tradition and innovation mirrored the characters she created. Perhaps her real-life journey could entwine seamlessly into a fable steeped in vivid imagery and moral grounding. After school that day, Maya found solace in a small park nearby, the rustle of leaves a calming backdrop to her thoughts. Here, she allowed her mind to wander. What if she held a small gathering of her own to share her work before the workshop? A soft launch, where she could practice and refine her narrative, gauge reactions without the blaring spotlight of total strangers judging her. But with this kernel of resolve came another wave of doubt. What if her colleagues dismissed her ideas as childish or irrelevant? Could she withstand the possibility that they might see her as foolish? Maya could almost hear the faint echoes of their laughter, a petrifying reminder of the chasms between them. In that moment, she was struck by a revelation: her voice was not simply for her own expression, but a catalyst. If she hesitated to challenge the norms of storytelling within her school, how could she encourage her students to explore their own divergent paths? The dichotomy of her roles, teacher and dreamer, shifted, and for the first time she understood that these identities could coexist. Fueled by this discovery, she returned home that evening, her notebook filled with sketches of characters and plots, shimmering under the light of her desk lamp. With every stroke of her pen, it felt as if she was articulating not only her journey but also blazing a trail for her students who may feel trapped by conventional expectations. But those hidden voices of doubt remained, haunting whispers questioning her ability to weave her personal truth in a way that resonated with others. As the moonlight slipped through her window, she pondered whether she could craft a narrative that might honor both her voice and her responsibilities. The thrill of the digital workshop loomed just out of reach as she clutched the covers of her story. But what if she approached it as a dialogue, a conversation with herself and her peers? This question hung like a question mark above her swirling thoughts, and as she took a deep breath, it grew clearer: she was not only telling her story, she was inviting others to join her. Would she cultivate the courage to share her vulnerabilities, to transform them into art that could enlighten both herself and her students? The anticipation was intoxicating. Yet, as the night deepened, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the true challenge loomed closer than she had imagined. The next morning would summon a crucible, a meeting of like-minded teachers where she could present her evolving narrative. How would they respond? What would they see when she bared her soul? The ticking clock of opportunity echoed in her mind, the urgency to evolve pressing against her as she closed her notebook, heart racing. Tomorrow would bring clarity, but first, she needed to confront the most daunting adversary of all, herself. Maya woke up with the dawn, her heart pounding visibly against the comfort of her sheets. Today was the day. The anxiety that crept into her thoughts had been relentless, pushing against her commitment from the night before. It stirred and twisted within her, leaving her in a state of turmoil as she pushed herself through her morning routine. The children left for school with careless enthusiasm, leaving an echo of laughter that seemed to bounce off the walls, a stark contrast to the weight in her chest. As she prepared for work, Maya looked in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. The smudged lines beneath her eyes mirrored her internal conflict, a battle between the pull of her mundane responsibilities and the push of her creative aspirations. At school, the morning's triviality washed over her like a wave, but deeper inside, she clung to her plan. By the afternoon, she would stand in front of her colleagues as an aspiring storyteller, not merely an instructor trodden in traditional methods. The thought electrified her, even as it summoned fresh waves of doubt. Was she a teacher or a dreamer? Did she have the authority to weave her passions into the fabric of their educational discussions? As the bell rang marking the end of class, she gathered her thing and found herself marching toward the staff room with purpose. Heart racing, she entered, and the conversation stilled momentarily as all eyes turned to her. Their faces revealed a mixture of curiosity and skepticism, an unspoken challenge hanging in the air. "Maya," called Carol, her voice filled with warmth but edged with curiosity. "What's got you so animated today?" This was the moment. She took a breath, steadying herself against the pull of inertia, and spoke. "I'd like to share something I've been developing. It's a story, my story, really about bridging imagination and education." Nods from a few colleagues kept her heart from leaping into her throat, but she still felt the fractures of fear wanting to take hold. There was a brief pause before one of the more traditional-minded teachers crossed his arms, the skepticism evident on his face. "A story? You think our students need more stories? They need structure." The challenge hung in the air like a dark cloud, and she sensed laughter bubbling just beneath the surface of a few chuckles. The air thickened around her. Just as the urge to retreat slithered back into her gut, she remembered her students, their bright faces, and how they thrived on the stories she shared with them. In that second, something shifted. Confidence surged, ignited by her earlier revelations. Don't we need to expand the horizons for our students? What if we approach learning as a journey? Stories are powerful tools for sparking curiosity and empathy, she pushed back, voice firm and unwavering. Maya could feel the room oscillate between acceptance and resistance, their reticence almost palpable. Nevertheless, she pressed on, carefully laying out her vision and the potential narrative that adorned her notebook. As she articulated her thoughts, Maya saw the expressions around her shift, some faces hardening in disbelief, while a few began to glint with curiosity. Every word she spoke became a step forward, a confrontation with what she had feared the most, harsh judgments not just from her colleagues, but from her own self-doubt. As she delved deeper into her narrative proposal, descriptions of her character's struggles began to weave together with her struggles, their failures mirroring her own hesitation, and yet, her resolve painted a pathway through to potential triumph. Upon finishing, sympathies and disapprovals coexisted. The silence was deafening, demanding the next move from her. As her colleagues began to whisper among themselves, Maya's got twisted at the uncertainty surrounding their reception. This was the crucial moment. She was standing at the fulcrum of self-discovery and vulnerability, punctuated by the risk of rejection. She wondered if this bold leap into storytelling might shine a light on her hidden fears, begging. The ultimate question: what if she learned more about herself than she ever thought possible? The time felt omnipresent, a churning mix of anticipation and dread. Just before the bell rang to release everyone, Carol piped up, fighting through the hushed uncertainty in the room. "I think there's merit to exploring narratives in our teaching. Let's give her some space to develop the idea further." As Maya processed the shift in tone and renewed support from some quarters, she couldn't help but think that perhaps she was planting a seed for a more expansive educational approach. However, as the bell rang, the clarity of the support felt overshadowed by the looming decisions of how to proceed, her heart still heavy with countless unanswered questions. What would her next steps be? Should she bring her students into the fold of this undertow of ambition, or should she stand solo, risking it all in a sea of uncertainty? With those pressing decisions weighing on her, Maya walked back to her classroom, an exhilarating blend of hope and trepidation propelling her forward. The dawning realization was clearer now: she was teetering on the brink of something transformative. And in that instance of self-reflection, she questioned, would she find the strength to envelop them all in her narrative, challenging the very norms she once acquiesced to? Would they thrive together in this shared adventure? Only time would reveal what awaited her on the other side of this literary endeavor, as she stood poised to uncover more than just her story. Maya sat at her desk, the familiar scent of chalk dust lingering in the air, her eyes drifting over the scattered papers that detailed her vision for integrating storytelling into the curriculum. As the classroom grew quiet, she felt both electrified and anxious, a tightrope walker balancing between the exhilaration of her aspirations and the nagging doubts that threatened to pull her down. The echoes of her colleagues' reactions churned in her mind, reinforcing the bravery it took to expose her passions. In that solitude, surrounded by children's drawings pinned to the walls, Maya began to draft an outline for her first storytelling session. She envisioned the eager faces of her students, their eyes wide with wonder as she spun tales that transcended the ordinary confines of their textbooks. Her heart swelled with a desire to cultivate a classroom environment where curiosity flourished, where imagination was a gateway to learning rather than a mere distraction. Yet, alongside that yearning was the harsh reality of her present. Would this approach truly resonate with them? Would she be able to convey the depth of her passion and insight? Determination tickled her spine as Maya decided to take a small but concrete step forward. She rummaged through her desk until she found a stack of blank note cards and some colorful markers. It was time to map out the basic narrative she wished to introduce, intertwining lessons from history with threads of fantasy and emotion. The characters she crafted would face challenges that symbolized the very struggles her students encountered, fostering a deeper connection through relatability. As she worked, her mind wrestled with a dilemma: should she also share the intricacies of her own journey? Reveal the fears that fueled her creativity? There was a certain liberation in transparency, yet it felt perilous to lay her vulnerabilities bare in front of young, impressionable minds. Would they see her as a teacher, or merely a flawed storyteller, navigating her own uncertainties? Just before the lunch bell rang, a wave of resolve overcame her. She would weave herself into the narrative, allowing those fractures to serve as a connective tissue between her and her students. Her scars could impart wisdom, crafting resilience not just in fiction but in the lives she aimed to better. Could vulnerability, after all, be a beacon for them? Over lunch, as she shared bits of her evolving plan with Carol, Maya felt the pull of camaraderie. The supportive nods and encouraging words from her friend became a balm, soothing the nerves that threatened to tighten around her creativity. Carol's enthusiasm further fueled Maya's conviction: imagine how they'd react. This could redefine their entire learning experience. You'll have to be brave, but you're not alone. Encouraged, she pondered how she could present this framework to the students. Perhaps starting the lesson with a personal story of overcoming adversity would help them understand the weight of her commitment. Might this create an opening for her students to share their own narratives? Before she left for home that day, her mind was already racing toward the blueprint for their first collective storytelling session. Arriving home, Maya felt the familiar bustle of her children, their laughter resonating as they recounted their days. But this time, instead of feeling distant from them, she engaged. She asked them about their favorite stories and how those tales made them feel. Their enthusiastic responses ignited something within her. This was what she sought to evoke in her classroom. Later that night, she began to sketch out her storytelling framework, carefully balancing personal anecdotes with engaging narratives for her students. Each story would reflect a lesson, while also subtly echoing the notion that everyone possesses their own tale worth telling. The narrative began to take shape in her mind. It felt alive with promise: each character, each plot woven into both an adventure and a lesson. Yet, even amid the thrill of creation, a lingering uncertainty gnawed at her, the reminder that she was walking this path alone, particularly within the walls of her workplace. As the clock ticked closer to her first storytelling session, the weight of her choices bore down. What if her colleagues turned against her? What if her own students rejected her openness? Determined not to allow fear to stifle her creativity, Maya envisioned the students' faces lit up by the spark of storytelling. The anticipation of that moment lingered as she penned her concluding thought for the evening: what if they find power in their stories? With that, she realized she was not just crafting a lesson plan, she was igniting a revolution of voices. As her pen brushed the paper, Maya committed herself to not only sharing stories but embracing the transformative journey ahead. But as she rested her head on the pillow that night, the question echoed louder: could she truly open the floodgates for her students to share their stories, knowing she would have to expose her own deepest scars along the way. Maya stood before her classroom the next morning, her heart pounding like a drum. Today marked a formidable milestone, the moment she would lay bare her aspirations and fears while inviting her students to embark on a storytelling journey. She felt like a ship caught between the shores of hope and trepidation. The sound of children rustling in their seats broke her focus, reminding her that this wasn't just about her. She took a deep breath, attempting to ground herself in the present and the complexity of what was to come. As her students filed in, their playful chatter filled the room. Maya greeted each child with a smile, even as an unease settled heavily in her stomach. They were unaware of the weight she carried, the uncertainty that danced behind her confident facade. But could that vulnerability become a tool for connection? "Good morning, class," she called, her voice steady yet laced with an underlying tremor. "Today, we're going to explore storytelling in a way that's a little different than usual." She held up the note cards, vibrant colors flashing like the sparks of creativity she hoped to ignite. "These stories will be a mix of fantasy and real-life adventures, ones that echo our own skies, your truths, your challenges, and your imaginations." A few skeptical eyebrows raised. Maya's pulse quickened. Should her honesty about her nervousness be acknowledged? Should she risk confession as a teaching strategy? "I want to start with a story of my own," she continued, her voice firming with each word. "When I was younger, I faced a lot of challenges, just like you might. I struggled to find my voice, and sometimes it felt like my stories weren't worth telling." The room was silent, all eyes fixed on her. This was the crux of it. Could she lead them to trust her? To feel safe enough to share their own vulnerabilities? She shared her tale of overcoming obstacles, weaving in the lessons she learned about resilience, creativity, and the power of sharing one's narrative. As she spoke, she noticed their expressions shift from skepticism to curiosity, a small but profound victory igniting within her. "But here's the thing," she continued. "Your stories matter. They carry power. As we dive into today's stories, I want each of you to consider your own life. What have you faced? What makes your heart race? What are your dreams?" The initial reluctance in the room began to dissipate. Maya could sense the energy shifting, her words resonated. She introduced the first story, an adventurous journey of a young hero who faced fears and challenges, each obstacle symbolizing various struggles her students might relate to. As she narrated, her students leaned forward, hanging on to every word as if each syllable was a thread that connected them closer. The initial anxiety that had gripped her transformed into exhilaration as she realized the storytelling framework was unfolding precisely as she envisioned. After the story ended, she encouraged them to reflect. What challenges did the hero face, and how can we connect those to our own lives? For those brief moments, it felt as though she had opened a doorway, a bridge to their thoughts and feelings. Several students hesitantly shared their own fears. Maya smiled, sensing their revelations unlock a new kind of courage, one that melded their individual stories into a cohesive whole. Each tiny confession, each whisper of vulnerability sparked a collective warmth, allowing her to see the extraordinary potential for growth within the ordinary. Yet amid the triumph, a flood of doubt threatened to crash over her. Would this experience be fleeting? Would the courage they felt today stand when faced with adversity tomorrow? As she steered the discussion, she silently vowed to nurture this unexpected synergy, to cultivate an environment where every voice mattered. "Next time, we'll craft our own stories, tales that reflect who we are," Maya concluded, excitement and fear stirring within her and uncertainty surrounding whether they would embrace this creative outlet or retreat back into their shells. A final buzz of chatter filled the room, but a new tension lingered in the air, leaving her anxiously awaiting the next session. Could she truly sustain their momentum, guiding them deeper into their storytelling journeys? How would she maintain her own resolve amid the unpredictable nature of this personal revolution? As the students filed out, she felt the thrill of possibility coursing through her, mingled with the weight of responsibility. Behind it all simmered a single, haunting question: were they ready to confront the deeper stories lurking within, and would she have the strength to guide them through the unknown? With each passing day, Maya felt the room's energy pulse, a symphony composed of whispers, laughter, and the occasional exclamation of surprise. The stories unfolding around her were not mere assignments, they had begun to weave a collective narrative. Yet, the thrill she felt was accompanied by an undercurrent of dread. What if the students lost interest? What if she couldn't keep the momentum going? As she sat at her desk preparing for the next session, the familiar array of notecards lay strewn across the surface, waiting for her guiding hand. With every word spoken in the last class, she had nudged open the door to self-exploration for her students. Now she had to ensure they didn't hesitate at the threshold. Maya had one goal, to instill in them the belief that their stories were worthy of being shared. Yet, uncertainty gnawed at her. She could see the potential within each child, she could hear the faint echoes of their stories calling to her. Did she have the necessary tools to coax those tales from the shadows? What if her own storytelling fell flat? The thought whispered doubt into her mind, leaving traces of self-doubt that she had to actively shake off. "All right, Maya," she muttered to herself, "this is about them, not you." It was a mantra she often repeated, catalyzing her focus back toward her students. With forced resolve, she began formulating a framework for their next session. They would delve deeper and engage with their fears, exploring the emotional undercurrents that shaped their narratives. On the day of their next class, Maya entered the room as though she were walking onto a stage. The initial moments felt electric, the air thick with anticipation. She knew her performance would set the tone for the entire session. "Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to take another step into our storytelling journey," she announced, the words tumbling out with a quickening heart. Maya invited her students to gather in a circle, cloaked in warmth and community as they shifted into a more intimate setting. She began by sharing another story, this one about a phoenix rising from its ashes, an embodiment of resilience. As she narrated, she infused the tale with her own experiences of failure and rebirth. The children listened, rapt, their eyes widened, reflecting both wonder and a mirror of their own struggles. Her storytelling became a delicate dance, one she needed to master. After finishing the tale, Maya opened the floor to let the students craft their own narratives. She handed each child a note card, encouraging them to write down what they feared losing, declaring each fear as the first seed of their story. Some students seemed hesitant at first, glancing nervously at their belongings or out the window. Maya felt her stomach tighten, she needed to coax them into sharing. Writing from fear can be incredibly powerful. It means we are ready to face the dragons in our lives, she reassured them, recalling her own battle with self-doubt. One by one, hands began to rise. "I'm afraid I won't be as good as everyone else," a girl confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. Maya nodded, her heart swelled with empathy. That's the beauty of storytelling, it's not about comparison but about understanding ourselves on a deeper level. As more students opened up, tentatively voicing their fears, Maya felt a surge of triumph. Each shared vulnerability added a layer to their collective narrative. It was raw and honest, and unavoidable tears glimmered in some eyes, a tapestry of emotion woven in the room. Yet, amid this joy, the shadows of doubt returned, swirling silently in the corners of her mind. What if I can't sustain this? Her thoughts twisted around her resolve. She needed to design strategies to keep that vulnerability alive, to ensure her students could rely on her guidance in crafting their stories without fear. As the bell rang, signaling the end of their session, she felt proud yet deeply unsettled. Had they really begun an authentic journey, or was this merely an inflection point? Even as hope tangled with anxiety, she considered her next steps. "Next class, we'll explore the happy endings," she teased, though her own heart wasn't entirely convinced. With that thought, a new question cropped in her mind: did every story truly deserve a happy ending, or was the beauty found in the struggle itself? The deeper implications of her lesson hung heavy in the air, prompting Maya to wonder how deeply the students would delve into this question. Would they brave exploring the stories behind their fears again, or would they retreat? The thought lingered uneasily, amplifying her sense of responsibility. Could she guide them in navigating through the darkness, into the light? Maya woke up that morning with the lingering weight of her last class pressing on her mind. The phrase exploring happy endings seemed deceptively simple, yet the complexities behind it gnawed at her. She had been grappling with the notion that some stories didn't conform to her ideal of a neat conclusion. Fractured realities were often more poignant than resolved narratives. As she prepared for the day ahead, she stared at her reflection in the mirror, searching for a semblance of the confidence she hoped her students would find in themselves. Her nervousness transformed into a ferocious determination to make the lesson about happy endings a vehicle for deeper self-awareness. Arriving at the classroom, an invisible current of unease surged through her. Had the students truly begun to understand the beauty in vulnerability? Or would they perceive it merely as an exercise to pass? She felt a pang of responsibility. Her success rested not only on their enthusiasm but also on her ability to cultivate an environment of authentic reflection. That day, she decided to open with a tale about a girl who faced insurmountable odds and found herself at a crossroads, with a choice to either surrender to despair or fight for her dreams. As she spun the narrative, Maya allowed herself to dissolve into the emotions of the character, hoping her fervor would resonate with her students. Remember, happy endings aren't just about the resolution, they are about the journey getting there, she articulated, attempting to weave a connection between the character's struggles and her students' lives. A hand shot up from the back. It was Marcus, a boy whose silence was often mistaken for indifference. What if we don't want happy endings? His question sliced through the air, and Maya felt the room go still. An unexpected thrill coursed through Maya. Marcus was challenging the very premise of what she had planned. Instead of feeling defensive, she welcomed this fresh perspective. What do you mean? She prompted, genuinely curious. He fidgeted before speaking again, his voice now steadier. Like, what if our fears are just part of who we are? What if we don't want to change? She inhaled sharply, realizing the importance of this moment. Maya understood that acknowledging one's fears could be part of healing, a theme she hadn't explored. That's a valid point, Marcus. Sometimes, the stories we tell don't need to follow a traditional path. They can reflect our reality, messy as it might be. With renewed urgency, she waited for others to build upon Marcus's statement. Several hands waved energetically. One girl shared how she struggled with family expectations. A boy described his battle with anxiety, linking it to the pressure for everything to seem perfect. Maya felt a rush of pride mingled with concern. This wasn't just a class, it was a space for raw human connection. Yet, as the discussions deepened, her doubts clawed at her again. Could she manage this newfound vulnerability they were willing to share? Would they find the strength to confront the uncomfortable within themselves, or would they retreat into the safety of silence? By the end of the session, she had successfully guided her students into exploring the tumultuous fabric of their narratives. Yet, a whisper of anxiety lingered. Would they feel abandoned in confusion? As the bell rang, signaling the end, she quickly shifted gears. Next time, we'll share the stories that linger, the endings that might not be joyful but are essential for growth. The excitement that bubbled through the room filled her with cautious hope. As her students filed out, Maya pondered Marcus's original question. Was she prepared to navigate the darker side of storytelling? The complexity of real life loomed in her thoughts. This exploration could reshape their individualized journeys, but at what cost? Maya glanced down at the weight of her note cards and pens, a shiver running up her spine. Could she truly delve into the shadows alongside them? A new inquiry flickered in her mind. What hidden narratives awaited? Discovery from within her own heart. The struggle to confront her own story echoed with relentless urgency. Maya returned home after a long day, a whirlwind of thoughts surrounding her. The classroom discussion lingered in her mind, merging with her own unresolved emotions. She felt as though she was standing on the cusp of a revelation, yet an inexplicable fear nudged at her conscience. What was it that she was truly avoiding within herself? She dropped her bag by the door, a habit ingrained by fatigue, and made her way to the kitchen. The comforting aromas of her culinary adventures usually brought her solace, but that evening, she felt restless. She rifled through ingredients absent-mindedly, her mind still buzzing with Marcus's questions and her students' surprising openness. "What if we don't want change?" The query echoed, demanding an answer that she wasn't ready to confront. As she mixed flour and sugar, a part of her sought retreat in the mundane task, while another part wrestled with deeper introspection. While standing over the mixing bowl, her thoughts spiraled. Could she lead these young minds through shadowy terrain when she herself was fearful of the dark corners of her own experience? The weight of her professional role pressed heavy. Just teaching literature was no longer simple, it meant crafting a narrative that aligned with authenticity. That night, Maya found herself sleepless, torn between the necessity of vulnerability and the protective armor she had worn for years. She recalled her own adolescence, filled with stories she rarely dared to share. Nightmares of social rejection and fear of vulnerability bubbled to the surface. Was her fear of it all intersecting with her students' lives? By morning, she grappled with the idea of designing her next lesson plan differently. It needed to be a mirror, not just a guidance tool, a reflection of the complexity of emotions that could forge resilient identities. Her heart raced at the thought of pushing past her comfort zone. Perhaps discussing happiness and resolution wasn't enough, perhaps they needed to embrace stories where fear, rejection, and uncertainty loomed as powerful characters in their narratives. Later, while setting up the classroom, she envisioned a circle of students sharing the unfiltered tapestry of their lives. Each narrative would be a thread, woven with care, revealing ordinary yet profound truths. But as soon as the idea crystallized, doubt rushed in like a flood, obliterating her resolve. Could she really ask them to unearth their rawest vulnerabilities? Would she be equipped to handle the fallout of unleashing such powerful narratives into the room? The bell rang and the students filtered in, their chatter a comforting noise that somehow heightened her anxiety. "Today," she began, her voice unexpectedly wavering, "we're going to dive deeper into the stories of our lives." She hesitated, searching the faces of her students for encouragement. "I want us to discuss the moments that linger, the ones that shaped us but might not fit our expectations of a happy ending." Her students exchanged glances, some filled with curiosity, others foreshadowing caution. One by one, they began to share. A girl revealed how her parents' divorce had tainted her view of love. A boy spoke about the loneliness that shadowed his achievements, the accolades feeling hollow without genuine connection. With each revelation, the room transformed into a crucible of honesty, but the heat pressed against Maya's fears. She was ascending a mountain without the safety gear. As she guided them through this emotional exploration, she felt her own childhood stories beckoning from the depths of her memory. Yes, she had experienced heartbreak, failure, and isolation, yet she had shrouded those moments in the fabric of her identity, afraid of exposing them. What if the darkest stories housed their own kind of light? By the end of the class, students were visibly moved, some even in quiet tears. Maya felt the pull to reveal her own story, to stand alongside them, but she hesitated, glancing down at her notes instead. Would sharing her experience strengthen their connection, or would it ratchet up her vulnerability? It was then that she realized, in facing her students' fears, she had a choice: remain in the shadows or step into the light of shared authenticity. A thought pierced her heart: how long would she keep her own story locked away? The question propelled her toward an unexplored realm within herself. As the students departed, and the weight of their truths hung in the air, Maya found herself poised on the edge of a profound shift. She inhaled deeply, clutching her note cards, the ink barely dry on her plans. Would she possess the courage to venture deeper into her own narrative's mysteries, illuminating the hidden elements of her truth? The promise of discovery loomed ahead, tantalizing and intimidating. Apprehensions danced within her. What would emerge if she tore away the layers? The next morning, Maya awoke to a wave of nervous energy coursing through her. The choice loomed heavy in her mind: the decision to share her own story alongside her students. She glanced at her reflection in the mirror, seeking reassurance in the familiar face that stared back. Was she really ready to expose her vulnerabilities, to open a window into her past while encouraging her students to process their own? As she prepared for the day, anxiety twisted in her stomach, but a small flame of determination flickered beneath the surface. The classroom had transformed into a sanctuary for exploration over the past few weeks, and she felt an unyielding resolve to deepen that connection. It was not merely about the stories themselves, it was about the stories that intertwined their lives, each thread woven through shared experiences. Arriving at school, she felt a palpable thrill mixed with fear as she entered the classroom. Today's lesson would require a deft balance. Not only would she guide her students through their darkest narratives, but she would expose her own as well. The initial atmosphere was electric, but she sensed apprehension hanging in the air like a veiled curtain. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice steady despite the fluttering in her chest. "Today, we'll confront the stories that didn't wrap up neatly, the ones shaped by heartache and uncertainty. I'm not asking you to face these fears alone, I'll be sharing my own story too." Her students exchanged curious glances. There was a hesitance, perhaps a spark of understanding that stirred deep within them. This was the threshold of a new era in their storytelling journey, one where vulnerability became a shared experience. As she wove her own tale, Maya spoke of the struggles she faced growing up, of disappointments that nearly extinguished her dreams, and moments when she felt trapped between obligation and aspiration. Each word poured forth as a testament to the challenges she had overcome, accompanied by the lesson she had learned: vulnerability knit people together rather than tear them apart. Gradually, her students began to trust that space Maya had created. "I once thought my dreams were selfish, but they were actually doors to resilience," she explained. Just as she spoke, she could see their walls beginning to crumble. One by one, their hands reached up to share their own stories. "I always felt like I was too much," a girl admitted. "I got used to not sharing my wins because I was afraid of being proud," another boy confessed, his honesty resonating like a chord striking true. With each revelation, the classroom morphed into a tapestry of shared human experiences. Laughter mingled with tears as they delved deeper, illuminating hidden corners of their hearts. Yet amidst the collective bravery, Maya felt a swell of doubt. As she observed the unfolding emotions, the realities her students shared mirrored the very scars she had lived with for years. What if exposing her truth became a burden? But she held her ground, realizing that what they were crafting together was not just stories, it was a reinvention of self through narrative. This was their moment, the culmination of their journey, spotlighting not just despair but empowerment. As the final bell rang, a warmth enveloped the room, a satisfaction fluttering like butterflies in her stomach. Each student walked away with new insight, and Maya felt a deeper connection to them through this shared experience of truth. That evening, she sat within the comfortable chaos of her home, her children's laughter bouncing off the walls. In that moment, Maya understood that she had achieved far more than mere storytelling. She had ventured into the troubled waters of her own experiences in a way that provoked growth, inspiration, and hope. Weeks passed, and what started as a significant endeavor evolved into a full-fledged storytelling initiative. Maya successfully transformed her classroom into a vibrant community of voices, each student daring to share their tales, some tragic, others joyful, and many in between. Feedback from parents began to pour in, parents who witnessed their children blossom, emboldened to explore their feelings and express themselves. Recognition came from the administration, highlighting Maya for her innovative teaching practices and commitment to fostering creativity. As Maya savored this acknowledgement, she felt an anchor of confidence solidify within her. She was now a respected educator committed to encouraging students to embrace the power of their own narratives. Reflecting on her journey, she knew this wasn't merely the end of a chapter, it was the lifeblood of her evolution. The realization washed over her like sunlight. She no longer stood as an isolated figure navigating the labyrinth of doubt. Instead, she became a beacon, demonstrating to her students that vulnerability could be a pathway to strength. With a heart full of gratitude, Maya stepped into her classroom, excited to inspire the next group of dreamers, storytellers, and changemakers. She had conquered her fears and redefined what it meant to be an educator. Witnessing growth, both within herself and among her students, felt like the happiest of endings. Now, it's your turn to take action. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that can inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your support matters. Comment below your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. Let's hear your thoughts. And wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful transformation journey. They deserve to be inspired too,